What if your biggest obstacle isn't a lack of strategy, discipline, or work ethic, but instead an identity that you've outgrown? In today's conversation, I sit down with executive coach, speaker, and author Tanya Oliver to explore the hidden emotional and identity level patterns that keep ambitious people stuck, even when they're succeeding on paper. We discuss emotional intelligence, and she does a brilliant job breaking emotional intelligence down into 3 specific tiers. We discuss the deep identity subconscious level work that is necessary to ascend to the next level of life. We talk about identity shifts, addiction, emotional avoidance, and why so many high performers continue chasing external success while quietly struggling internally. Tanya Oliver is an executive coach, a business strategist, speaker, and founder of the Ultimate Achievers Academy, where she helps CEOs, executives, and 7-figure entrepreneurs elevate their leadership, performance, and business growth by mastering the mindset behind sustainable success. She's also the author of a recent book, Building the New, a year of living life on purpose. You'll hear her talk about or mention aspects of the book periodically throughout this conversation, and I've dropped the link to purchase the book on Amazon in the show notes for today's conversation. A lot of frameworks, a lot of tactics. Have something readily available to take notes with, and let's dive in. Tanya, I want you to unpack something for us, because the context here is most of the audience listening either still is emotionally constipated or at once was. And you've said, and I've read it, I've heard you say it, that emotions are our guidance systems, and they tell us what's really going on at a subconscious level.
Mm,
Explain.
sure. Well, I've never heard the way that you had, as you say, unpacked that word. What did you say? Emotionally constipated?
Yeah, just tight,
I've never
constricted.
That's pretty funny. I've never heard that before, but that's pretty good. All right. So getting to that kinda like I was like, "Oh, got stuck on that one." So as far as, you're talking about, um, using emotions, okay, so one of the things throughout my own testimony was for earlier on in my life, it was easier for me not to feel than to feel, and so I was emotionally numb, my heart was hardened, and, I really struggled with having healthy relationships. And any
Hmm.
business owner, anybody that wants to be successful understands that this is a interdependent. If
Mhm.
you want to cultivate a successful business, you have to learn to have interdependent relationships, which requires a strong, keen sense of emotional intelligence. So, this began my journey of unhardening my heart and starting to feel. And what I discovered throughout my personal journey, which then became parts of my teaching, was that there's a 3-tier level to emotional intelligence. And if you really want to build a righteous business life and legacy, it requires emotional intelligence. And so this tier becomes emotional availability, emotional management, and then emotional intelligence, because you have to be able to manage your emotions in order to be able to help others navigate theirs, when the key goal is to, like, both of you win whatever that trophy is. So to answer your question, there was a lot of emotions that happened when I learned to become emotionally available, and that required me to have certain tools and things that I also teach my clients to have specific tools in order to do that. So I wanted to kind of break that down for the person
Yeah.
listening in case they're like, what is this whole thing called feelings? What is this whole thing called emotions? Because I'm sure, Paul, you've experienced this when you start working with heightenedly successful individuals. There is a place where you have to compartmentalize your emotions
Mhm.
when there is like something to get done. But at the same time, if you don't kind of circle back to them and understand that they're part of helping you navigate what is in alignment and out of alignment in your business and your life and the relationships that are important to you. It becomes kind of like this guidance system, but at the same time, you have to have discernment on, is it just part of my growing spurt, or is it something that is guiding me that I'm not on the right course? So it becomes very
Yeah.
interesting where discernment really, we could literally have a whole conversation on this.
Yeah, well, let's go one step further. For
Yeah.
someone listening who does struggle, they avoid their emotions at all costs. Maybe their form, working is their form of emotional avoidance, pouring themselves into their job and doing it as a means to avoid feeling the anxiety, the fear, the anger, the uncertainty. If they continue to repeatedly dismiss or repress those emotions, those signs, what happens?
I mean, you have to get clear on what do you want. And then parts of getting what you want requires a lot of emotions. When I had gone on the journey and I said yes to my assignment of getting my book, writing my book, getting it published, and it hitting international bestseller, there was a lot of emotions part of the process, especially the closer that I got towards finishing. A lot of breakdowns, a lot of questioning the journey, a lot of asking myself if I was cut out for this, and other things too, overcoming really hardship in life. Anybody that's done anything heightenedly like significant will attest that you will really be stretched thin when you're doing anything at higher levels. And so if you got to have, I always explain it to like this when I do speaking events is like, you know, each emotion has a different tool of helping somebody process it, because experiences and when people go through memories, 'cause can create backlashed experiences that create memory patterns, positive or negatively charged, that can either sabotage somebody with making progress or it can help catapult them. Is this like kind of like making, I mean, I'm sure it's making sense to you. And so when somebody's unraveling, their emotions, you have to go back to, okay, is this more based on um an early child experience that is creating a trigger for me? Because it might not have anything to do with what's actually happening. It's just something like there's a sleeper cell. A cell is like not activated when we're
Yeah.
going through hardship, can activate a piece of you. That's why sometimes people will go through things and greatness will be pulled out of them, or they can just break down. People can either
Yeah.
transform into something like powerful, or they can set them off into addiction and down a really, really dark path. So that's why having tools in place is super important. But when you're talking about subconscious belief work and getting into the subconscious and identifying emotional patterns, and I explained it in my book. There's a identity shift framework, and it starts with an emotion, which is really nervous system regulation. Is your nervous system completely dysregulated? And then how you behave in that emotional trigger, and then from there, how you behave, it leads to how you make decisions or the lack of making decisions, aka procrastination and not showing up for those assignments. So it becomes like this
Yeah.
tier of like our emotions drive our behavior, our behavior drives our ability to make or not make decisions.
Which then influences results, reality, the identity we step into. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So, for someone listening who has struggled to begin even becoming emotionally aware, I like how you use the concept emotionally available. What are one of those first tools that you begin to work on cultivating with a client who might be experiencing that struggle?
There's one of the things I teach is it's a 9 steps to process negative thoughts and emotions. And first thing is just identifying, well, what is this feeling? Because you're gonna feel it in the body and it's gonna rise to temperature. That's when people get angry, their body heats up.
Mhm.
And you're identifying, like, is this anger? Is this anxiety? Is this, doubt? Is this like, what is this feeling? And spending
Yeah.
time just feel like sitting, like, feeling what it feels like to feel versus going and running to numb or suppress or holding your tongue,
Yeah.
because sometimes people just, like, word vomit, right? So it's
Yeah.
like when the nervous system is dysregulated, we go into 4 states. We go fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is people pleasing. A lot of people know about the
Yeah.
first 3, but a lot of people are not aware of that fawn response. And when you start to notice your behaviors when you're dysregulated, that's why regulation is so powerful, and having healthy tools to help you ground yourself so you can have a sound mind, that you have a clear mind to make better decisions. And when you're
Yeah.
unraveling these emotions, so you identify, like, what is it exactly that I'm feeling, because it's like, it's like, Paul, if you have to change your license plate because you don't want to get a ticket, right? There's laws that we got to live by. And you have these tools, and you go to grab your tool, you're going to, like, okay, well, I know I'm not going to use a hammer to take off my license plate. I have to use a screwdriver. So you have
Yeah.
awareness of what tool to pull for what is
Mhm.
needed to change your license plate. It's the same thing with our emotions. And so, in order to know which tool to pull, you have to identify what emotion you're feeling. So, when you start this process of emotional availability, you have to identify, well, what is this feeling? And then from there, develop tools. So, when you're processing the emotions, you identify, you feel it, and then when you say it, typically what I have somebody do is I'll put their hand on their heart, because the moment you activate, even 5 senses is a tool. When you activate the 5 senses, one of them is touch, and you put your hand on your heart, you're instantaneously uh, capable of regulating your nervous system for a moment. So you would
Yeah.
say it and you'd breathe. That's why breathing is so powerful, because it helps also regulate the heart, ground the nervous system. You feel it, and you say anger. And when you say this a few times, what I found, that 5, typically somebody does something 5 times, it gives them enough time to, like, just take a moment to separate the emotion from the reaction, because the key is to
Mhm.
separate your emotion from the reaction to create space. You know, people ought to say, "Oh, and I need to create space." It's so that you
Yeah.
can have that moment where you're not intertwined with that emotion, to know, like, I'm feeling anger, not that I'm an
Yeah.
angry person, the feeling. So then
I
you're not
love that
wrapping your
too.
identity with
Yeah.
a specific emotion that eventually can become a habit. And it can be, people can become addicted to specific emotions. I worked with a few clients, and they were addicted because of it was their driving force to, I don't know, work harder or get motivated. And so you have to identify, like, the things that are driving you. And sometimes people don't want to really heal or get better, because that one thing is the thing that drove them to become maybe
Mhm.
externally successful or something like that. So, every individual is a little bit different when it comes to things.
I agree. And I think throughout those 5 breaths that you described as an example, there's time to sit with the emotion. I often say, if you find the courage to sit with an emotion, just like a wave crashes along the shoreline and rolls back into the ocean, it comes and it goes. The wave of emotion passes. And in that space that you create, there's an opportunity for a full embodiment and acceptance of that emotion
Mhm.
rather than resisting, which you and I both know what we resist continues to persist. But I want to challenge you on one point to go deeper.
Mm.
I understand what you're saying, but for 30 years, I was emotionally constipated. If you asked me how I was feeling, Tanya, I
Mhm.
would tell you numb, good, dull,
Yeah.
nothing. We both know there are dozens more of emotions on that emotional spectrum. How do you begin educating someone about the different emotional experiences they may, in fact, be experiencing, but unable to place a word or adjective to it?
Yeah. Well, that was just a few of the steps. There's other steps, and that comes down
Mhm.
to somebody's willingness. Like, do you really want to
Mm.
change, right? Because we're not here, we're adults. Personal responsibility is a core value. Okay, we're talking about values, like, what do you value? That's why in the beginning of our conversation, I was saying, what's your end goal?
Mhm.
A lot of people want to be successful. Well, if you understand that being successful requires cultivating healthy, strong relationships for the long game, then you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And that also, like, biggest thing is having a support with coaches and stuff like that. This is not something to be done by yourself. It will drive you into a madhouse if you try to. I mean, maybe there's like a 1% of people that could, figure all this out on your own, but it's going to take a long time. I've always had a coach. I've always had somebody that helped break things down, help me understand it. Yes, we have ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is codependent on direction from us. It's
Yeah.
not it's meant to take instructions. It's meant to be an employee, not to be the employer. And that's where I think a lot of people are starting to even go down a negative rabbit hole with their mental health when they're using ChatGPT for the wrong reasons, especially for like therapy or coaching and stuff like that. And I've just seen it all the time.
I agree. And I've said this many times on this podcast. There's a stark difference between a teacher and a coach. A teacher, and ChatGPT, and this kind of fits that description, can empower you with the knowledge, the logic, the understanding of the frameworks, what you might be experiencing. But if you can't learn to embody and change, shift from being able to consciously respond rather than unconsciously react, you're going to continue to find yourself stuck in that same pattern of 2 steps forward, 3 steps
Yeah,
back.
yeah. So, I mean, I would honestly like to answer your question. I'm just gonna be straight up because that's just how I am. Either you like it or you don't. You need a coach. Like,
Yeah.
you need to invest and hire somebody. It's like somebody
Yeah.
even for the gym. Like if you going to the gym, like the one of the best investments you could do is to hire a personal trainer. You need to see
Mhm.
somebody that can observe your skeletal system. Need to go in
Yeah.
there, do a body mechanic assessment, teach you the formation and the form. You can go through the movement, but you can also compound movement and still hurt yourself because you're neglecting the foundation. And in scripture, it says if you want to destroy a building, mess with its foundation and build on weak interior. So it's the same concept with us. If we really want to be successful, aka success is also very personal. Success, what I've been written in my book, is you can have it all. You can have external and internal, but success is really having all the like all the I say the trophies, getting all the trophies, the house, the car, the relationships, the money in the bank, the career that you want, but then also still feeling the way that you want to feel
Yeah.
simultaneously, and that creating that harmony. Because I see a lot of people, and I'm sure you can attest to this, a lot of people when they start working with me, their business is winning, but most other areas in their life are not, and that's not success. That's why they still feel panic attacks in the morning, depressed, the relationships suck, and they don't feel good about themselves. They, in fact, are very disappointed and dissatisfied because they thought that when they achieved all those checkpoints, that they would feel the way that they wanted to feel in an internal state, and they don't. And so therefore, when they start doing the coaching work, it's like, okay, I have the money and I might have one or two other things, like all the materialistic stuff. Maybe I have the wife or the husband, but like the relationship is gone south.
Yeah.
So I don't want to lose that. It's one thing to get it, it's another, can you keep and sustain and multiply upon it? And so that's where you have to have that success is creating harmony between both your inner world and your outer world. Or you can have that in your inner world as you're in the pursuit of all those check marks for the outer.
And in your experience coaching so many successful, high achieving individuals, what is that silent struggle that maybe someone from the outside can't necessarily decipher, that someone finds themselves in a position where they are externally successful on paper, but they're internally struggling so much? Like, what is that inner struggle that they're most likely dealing with?
It depends on the person. I don't work with like some people it's massive panic attacks. Some
Hmm.
people they're scaling and they're going through a growth spurt because that's the thing is we're human beings and we were designed to there's not a there's a next level. And I think
Mhm.
people don't understand that there's another level, there's a new assignment. God's going to put something new in your heart once you're obedient to your calling, and there's going to be something else to move on because you've outgrown, and too many people are operating based on outdated identities. And so what I
Yeah.
see happen are these identity shifts, and AKA people call them midlife crises, but it's really an identity shift and nobody's talking about it. And so once you're clear, because in scripture they say, without a vision, the people will perish, you get clear on, okay, I want to achieve this next level target because this is alignment in my life. And the thing is, the key is
Yeah.
it's alignment. What is in most
Yeah.
alignment, and what's in alignment last season does not guarantee it's going to be alignment for you in this season. That's why there's something constantly to do with my clients called life audits. We're going to audit these 12 subcategories of your life, and I share that in the book. These 12 subcategories in your life, and we're going to rate it, and then we're going to also give it a, B, and a C, depending on what type of goal setter are you. Are you somebody, for example, maybe your health? You're all in and then you're all out, because you have to identify with the high achiever. There's a very predictable personality pattern. And the key is to transition the achiever into a leader
Mm.
because they don't operate the same, Paul.
Mm-mm.
Leaders and high achievers do not operate the same. One is more operating based on survival and chaos and chase. And then the other one is based on strategy. They're based on regulation, and they're based on emotional intelligence, self-mastery, and knowing how to be the eye of a hurricane.
Yeah, well said. I've found in my experience coaching is that underneath those people who externally are so successful and internally struggling is this fuel source of I need to prove myself, because if I'm not externally successful, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm not enough. However, they convince themselves I'll be happy or feel enough when, fill in the blank, that next
Yeah.
milestone, that next zero, whatever it may be. And it's exhausting. And as you alluded to earlier, they might even have the relationships, they might have the kids, the picket fence, but they don't have an actual connection or a
Yeah.
degree or ability to be present with, wife, husband, or children.
You know
Something
that
interesting. Or go ahead.
I was gonna say that's because their identity is wrapped based on what they do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, with
Yeah.
professional athletes or celebrities or people that are really, running massive and, economically important things, it's because they've wrapped everything in from the very beginning, especially men, is like based on what you do and how you perform. That's a performer. Based on how you perform is going to be like uh you're significant or you're not significant.
Mm-hmm.
You're contributing or you're not contributing. And that's just based on a false identity. A lot of it
Yeah.
comes down to identity and where you're measuring out your self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-respect, and how you're allowing others to measure you up with your worth, your esteem, and respect.
Yeah. And I
And
want our listen. Yeah, well said. I want our listeners to absolutely buy your book, but I want to ask curiously, you mentioned that life audit, which I'm a fan of, just rigorous auditing, reviewing,
Mhm.
reflecting. When you allude to those 12 areas, what are some of the types of questions you are asking people to better reflect and audit a particular area of their life?
Well, I have them write the date. Typically, I say, like, give it about a year. That's always been about that time frame for really, behavioral shifts and, uh, really core work because it becomes like a demolition.
Mm-hmm.
And I have them rank 1 through 12, and then they'll go ahead and they'll list, husband or wife. Even if they don't have one, to still write that out. Then I'll have them write friendships. I'll have them write materialistic stuff. I'll have them write money, career, health, aka like their body
Mm-hmm.
goals. And then
Yeah.
I'll go through all the 12. And then I'll have them write A, B, and C. Like, how are you with like, what is your level of fulfillment? That's how it's rated. Like 10 out of 10 is I don't know how this could get any better. But if it did, like, I'd be shocked and I feel
Yeah.
beyond fulfilled and satisfied. That's a 10. A
Yeah.
5 is if I stayed here, I'd be settling.
Mm.
And a 1 is I don't even know what that's like. So a lot of people have never even experienced what maybe they've had a house or an apartment, but they've never known what it feels like to have a home because there's a
Mm.
difference. And so
Big
when we're going
difference.
through these things, because that one thing too, when you're doing identity shift work with people, because that's really what I do. I help people with an identity shift, and then teach them the identity work. Because in order to have a shift, it becomes like a muscle, and every single day you have to practice the integration phase until it really gets cements in, until it becomes your new normal. The way that you
Yeah.
make decisions, the way that you respond or you don't respond, the environments you place yourself in, everything accumulates, it compounds. And so one thing
Yeah.
I would say, for example, somebody listening that maybe is you're like, I don't even know what this girl's talking about. I don't know what this lady's talking about. It's like if I gave you an apple option of an apple and a mango, Paul, and you said, you've always eaten apples. You're like, oh my gosh, apples, apples, apples. And I'll give you this, and it's like foreign to you. Like, I don't even know what that is. I'm like, oh, this is a mango. And I was like, you never had a mango before? No, I've never had a mango. Okay, you know what? Before we make a decision, you already know what apples taste like. You've eaten them your whole life. Try the mango. And this is a law of exposure. So you have the mango and you're like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? This is amazing. How have I never had this before? So when you're, for example, that's why putting yourself in rooms of the type of people and type of things that you want to have, it expands your ceiling of possibilities, that
Yeah.
it could exist for you, that it does exist for you, that it is possible, that you can live this way, that you are worthy, deserving, and allowed to. And it also exists in other people. So it's important. That's why they say the power of proximity, the power of
Hmm.
exposure, the power of having something, because then you start to see things differently versus like,
That.
foggy, like a fogginess. The fog is removed, and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, I love mangoes." And I'm like, "Okay, well, you can't unlearn what it tastes like to have an apple, but you just know that you'd rather be here." So then your life experiences starts to become to look for more mangoes. But you can't unlearn an experience. You just now have another option, a new neural pathway, a new way for you to now kind of put in your internal GPS, I call it. It
Hmm.
just drives you there.
I love that analogy. And it brings up for me something I first learned from Ed Milet probably years ago in one of his podcasts. But he talks about, if your goal is to vacation at place X every year, and right now in your journey, you can't afford a 2-week vacation, go stay at that resort, that hotel for 2 nights. Just get a little taste of it, beginning to understand what it's like. Because
Mhm.
proximity, again, you see different people there, different ways of living. And for you listening, another way you can approach this is right now you're working 6, 7 days a week, but you dream about taking a random Wednesday off to spend with your son or daughter, or golfing every Friday. Start once, start with a smaller version of that chapter of life you're chasing so you can begin to have that exposure, which becomes a catalyst for making it a reality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
I
One thing I
like
work
that.
with people is I'm like, okay, where do you go? People know, like, I was just talking about this last night. I spent what's it, today, Wednesday? I spent last night in worship with people. I don't really have a lot of time to hang out with friends, but what I do, either they're meeting me at the gym,
Mhm.
we're meeting at some type of like church or worship. And that's what we're doing. Or it's somebody's birthday, and of course, I'm gonna like, invest time because your presence is one of the greatest gifts you can ever give somebody. But somebody's important to me, I'm going to stop and I'm going to make sure that I'm time blocking that out. I'm really big on time blocking. So that I'm continuing to, every day is like a deposit or withdrawal. So where am I putting my deposits? Because I only have a certain amount of time, so I have a certain amount in my bank account. I only have a certain amount of time, and this is my best investment for the day.
Oh.
And then where am I allowing withdrawals? How am I pouring into people? Right now, we're doing, I'd say, the interchangeable right now, but like, like, okay, I'm also making withdrawals. You're making a withdrawal as well. Like, we're both making withdrawals
Mhm.
because this is a time that we've blocked out.
Yeah.
So I always look at like their ecosystem. What's your ecosystem like? Are you both
Yeah.
leaving better or are you both leaving worse? Everything becomes a funnel system. Everything's a deposit or a withdrawal. And sometimes you're gonna need more withdrawals, but what I see happening is people are so withdrawed that there's not any deposits at that's why
Yeah.
they're living life like The Walking Dead.
Well said. I like that. And I want to shift us now. Tell us about a season of your life where you were silently stuck, struggling, and maybe even on the outside things looked okay, great, everything was going well, but internally you were suffering.
Yeah. Well, I could tell you one of my skill sets is I see patterns, but when it's you, it becomes a little bit challenging. That's why I'm really big on coaches, and I've always
Mhm.
invested, and that's why I've even gotten to the space that I'm in. I would say that it was more about really being honest that I would avoid my stuff and I would be the first one to offer help to other people's going through
Mm.
trials and tribulations because it deflected me from having to deal with myself. And so one of the things how I would operate, I say was because that's something I'd worked on, is whenever I'd be dysregulated, I would go into fawn mode, people pleasing.
Mhm.
Tanya, I need this, I need that. No, yeah, no problem. And not dealing with my own stuff, not taking personal responsibility. And I'm a very disciplined person. People are like, oh my gosh, you're too disciplined and this and that. I'm like, but I also know me and I know my visions and I know my assignments and I know where God wants me. And I would neglect them and avoidance behavior to help other people and then be left still at the end of the day having to still go back and realize that nothing was resolved and I still didn't face it. And that's where that loophole, that cycle, that self-sabotage. So the tricky thing about subconscious work is that there's like these loopholes that happen until you break the loophole. And
Mm.
that's why having a coaches help you create that pattern disruptor.
Yeah.
And then also they give you the emotional support because it's emotionally triggering. Sometimes you're just like, I don't think I can handle anymore. I'm at capacity, Paul. I don't think I can literally handle one more thing. And I reach my max. And then here you come in as a pattern disruptor and you're like, T, like we got this, like a team. Like we got
Yeah.
this. And I'm like, okay. Like, and most high achievers, they don't need much. They just need other people that they know in moments when they're vulnerable and weak, that they can have another pillar of support to lean on that is going to treat their vulnerability as if their own. It's not a space of manipulation. It's not going to be a space of anything other. And so getting to what I'm saying here, I think the most appropriate word is I was betraying myself a lot. I was having a
Mm.
lot of self-betrayal, and I would be overly loyal to others, but I would be disloyal to myself. And that's what kept me stuck for a very long time if I'm being, talking about my personal
Yeah.
experiences.
And what did life look like for you then? That period of stuckness before that awareness became so bright and clear that the courage came to light and you were able to start doing the work.
It Well, I mean, addiction, getting into
Mm.
really bad relationships, friendships, um even a partnership. That's where, like, the book stemmed from, just choosing the wrong partner, and who you choose as your person is gonna be one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life. The
Mm.
people closest to you, are especially, like, for me, like, I'm right now, if I'm gonna date, I'm dating for marriage. I'm not dating for anything other. So, if I'm gonna go on a date, I see a potential candidate of somebody that has the core values and the standard that I'm operating in and that we're equally yoked, right? So, for
Yeah.
friends, I see them that they inspire me and they're gonna be, our values are aligned and we're better together versus separate. And so there's so much power for talking about emotions, cycling back to the very beginning, that you're able to cultivate kind of like recruiting your power team. So
Mm.
who's part of my
That.
lineup? Who's part of my power team? Because I'm just one person, but we're designed to have interdependent relationships in this lifetime. And there was a study done on Rat Park. Have you ever heard of Rat Park?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So there was a study done where they had laced one side, and I've come from a space of addiction. I used to work in outpatient centers with Jason Williams and did all that stuff like during COVID and stuff like that. And I've worked with like athletes of different categories until I found like my group are entrepreneurs and high achievers. Like
Yeah.
those are my people, operating in um, like dysfunction and chaos. So my goal is to get them operating better. So
Yeah.
functional addiction is what I call it. So
Huh.
in this study, Rat Park, they had one side laced with heroin, which was the only way to get off heroin, if you don't know, or if those listening, is by getting on another drug or you're going to die from it. And they isolated the rat and super addicted. One side had water, one had heroin. Rat was isolated. What they did was they did this study to show the power of connection, the power of
Mm-hmm.
connection and community. Can remember, another drug is the only way to get off heroin. So what they did is they created a rat park. They brought other rats in and they made it like this enriched environment. And they still left the heroin on one side and they had the water on the other. And then at some point, it wasn't going to the heroin.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't going to the lace because they had community. Why do you think when they have these centers, they build community?
Yeah.
So connection is the antidote of addiction, and addiction just means attachment. And the only reason why people choose substances is because they're in physical, emotional, mental, spiritual pain. And what has been in our society to help as a tool has been a substance, and then people become attached to the substance to get the end result, which is AKA relief. So when you start to distinguish new tools to help somebody process their negative thoughts and emotions, help them process their pain to still receive relief, they're most likely going to choose that because that is a long-term play.
Yeah. That's a fascinating study. I'm just picturing it and thinking about it further. And now that you mentioned it in detail, it does ring a bell. And
Yeah.
I relate to that a lot. And I think many people listening will relate to the isolation. Entrepreneurship and achieving another next level of success can be a lonely journey, or it can be easy to make it experienced as a lonely journey. That community is what allows you, in my experience, to go faster and to go further. And I think one of my mentors, he was actually a guest on the show, Nick Shaw, he told me, if you want to go far, go fast. Or what is it? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And I think that's another takeaway I hear when you share that study
No,
with
we need to
us.
go with the right others, okay?
Very true.
Because you're going with the wrong others, you're gonna get maybe to a certain point, but you're not going to get on the most aligned path. Remember, the
Yeah.
enemy wants us distracted and he wants us isolated. So if you're running with a group that is not part of your God given assignment, you're still not on the right course. You need to make
Yeah.
sure you're running, and there's seasons for this. Remember, there's levels to everything. There's seasons to everything. And sometimes you have the right playbook in the wrong season, Paul. People are
Yeah.
operating from the right playbook and the wrong season is still going to get misaligned goals, misaligned targets. You need to have the right playbook in the right season running parallel with the people most in alignment during that season. And then, like any sports team, I played 9 years of competitive ice hockey. So I kind of always use everything as like sports. And I've had different teammates and different levels, and some didn't come with me to the next level because they stopped at that level. And I just kept going because I want to be in the pursuit of greatness. I have a standard of excellence. I might get down, I might kinda get stay at a level for a little bit too long, but at some point, I'm telling you right now, with the desire in my heart, my mind, that I'm gonna get to the next level at some point. I'm gonna figure it out because that's my
Yeah.
calling in life. My calling is to leave a legacy. I didn't do this book because I've gotten anything, and I did because God was telling me to be obedient to the calling. And it wasn't a year, it was years of it. And now there's a new assignment. With a new assignment, I'm recruiting new people for the team that is going to help me win the championship, aka
Yeah.
of this season. Because if I'm
So-
gonna play, I'm playing to win, Paul.
as you should be. There's no other way to play. So aside from your ruthless commitment to fitness, are there any other maybe invisible routines or rituals that are non-negotiable for you that allow you to show up at, maximal energy and capacity on a regular basis?
Sure, let's just rewind that for a second. So it's more of something called a high performance habit.
Mhm.
And fitness is placement is to help quiet the chaos of the mind. It becomes a tool. I use
Okay.
it for my mental and my emotional strength, health, and stability. When
Mm.
I train, I'm mentally sharp, I'm emotionally stable, and I can take on a lot more capacity for the day. When I don't, because here's the thing, this is a relationship that I have with exercise. And some days I'm so dysregulated, my fitness is going for a prayer walk. So it's movement because I'm breaking down emotional turbulence for a moment to ground myself and with nature. So I'm choosing a combination of environment. Plus, because
Mhm.
I'm in Fort Lauderdale, I right near the beach, super blessed.
Mm.
And but the beach is like it's like my place. When I'm my most dysregulated, I have to be near the water. There's something about the some people it's the mountains, some people it's, different things, but for me it's the water. It's the beach. And so that I know is one of my tools to help me ground myself and to become mentally and emotionally stable and sharp because as an entrepreneur that's playing at high levels and has a lot of responsibility of other people that also have big responsibilities and I'm a pillar of strength for them, it's irresponsible if I didn't show up for that because I understand my responsibilities and I don't take them lightly, right? So I food is another one.
Mhm.
What I put into my body impacts my mind, it impacts my energy levels. And so I know that I'm not going to be putting junk food into my body because if we're talking about ADHD, we're talking about mental health, we're talking about like you guys got to look back at your food. If you're not eating right, that impacts this. What are we
Mhm.
codependent on in order to be sharp or like to get things done? We have to make decisions. We have to make decisions really fast. We have to know when to pivot. Like not every day when I did my time management workshop for identity shift with my group, what happened was it's like you're gonna have days where you're putting out a bunch of fires. And so you need to plan for those default days just as much as you're gonna plan for the ideal days. Another one is my night routine, my sleep. Like, I have to sleep. Sleep is so important because it's your
Yeah.
recovery, it's your charger. It makes sure also you're mentally on point, you're emotionally sound. Definitely getting your blood work done, hormones. Right now, I'm perimenopausal. I'm relearning my whole systems right now. Like, this is not a
Mm.
joke for women. Like, it's real.
Mhm.
It's real. I
Mm.
have a very strong threshold,
Mm.
pain tolerance and threshold, but I will tell you once I hit 42, I've noticed I'm relearning my whole body right now. I'm relearning my
Mm.
emotional state. I'm relearning like hormones are a big deal. If you're feeling off, you need to go get your blood work done. I'm a big fan of peptides. Right now, I started HRT treatment because I was like, I got too much goals for this stuff to be feeling like this. Like this. I don't know what this is, but this can't happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
go getting your especially as you're getting more in our mature years, your mid-30s plus, like you're gonna need to understand biology's real. Our bodies operate like women are different. We have to really
Mm.
like take this stuff serious. And men too, I see a lot of men struggling with testosterone. If your testosterone's off, like it's gonna affect everything.
Yeah.
And so, that and my morning routine, my time with God, I've really made a massive identity shift with my identity in Christ. And that's been the last several years. It's become a non-negotiable to be in communion and to know what that walk is and to make decisions based on where he wants me and how he wants me to steward and how he wants to place me and position me and how I can do, a lot of his work, but also for this who he wants me to serve at that point. So yeah, the morning routine, the night routine, the night routine impacts the morning routine. You want $1 million morning routine, get $1 million night routine. And then from there,
Yeah.
your food, your exercise, get your hormones checked,
Yeah.
hydrate. Water, 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 water. I mean, that's your foundation. I talked about earlier in our conversation, if you wanna destroy a building, mess with its foundation. A
Yeah.
lot of people I'm a coach, the performance coach for Fun Launch. They kinda took Wall Street and brought it mainstream. They're raising capital like $100 million, $50 million, $30 million, and a lot of them don't have a foundation. We build their foundation and all of a sudden they're thriving. It's like, like Mr. Miyagi
Mhm.
when he's like, I'm gonna
Oh,
learn this and I wanna learn that. And what does Mr. Miyagi do? He has them go back to the foundation.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
for somewhere along the way, whenever I start like getting off, because I'm human, I'm like, my foundation's off. I need to get back to my foundation and I need to get that locked in.
I echo that. It's really well said. In fact, I think episode 160 on the show is all about if you're feeling disconnected, I say you need to return to your fundamentals foundation. I like that word equally as much. I'm curious at this chapter of life, knowing you have these big goals that you're chasing and you're pouring yourself into taking action every day. Would you say you're more optimizing for time or energy in this chapter of life?
What's the energy in your time?
Mm,
It's the quality. It's what is there's a saying? It was it's not about the years you live, it's about how you lived in those years.
yeah.
And our greatest gift is presence. I actually did a post on this just now on my stories on my Instagram, and what I posted was the Diary of a CEO. That guy Steven, he did this one guy came on. I forgot his name, so sorry if anybody's watching. But they did this string test. So say you and I are talking and we're in proximity, and you're holding a string and I'm holding another string, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm like, hey Paul, how was your day? And then I'm like with you, and then you're talking and you're literally about to pour out to me maybe something vulnerable, and then I pick up my phone and then that just broke the connection.
Mm,
And I'm like, "No, no, no, keep going, keep going." But, like, subconsciously, energetically, like, that just broke our connection. And so it's the same thing with our projects. Are we actually fully present when we're investing our time into something, or and another thing too, when we're working on something, are we coming at it and we're projecting, if we're talking about cellular memory, are we projecting past fails, disappointments into new projects, or are we actually prophesy over them? Are we blessing them? Are we giving gratitude to them? Like what is the emotional state that you're carrying as you're going into your work? Are you complaining about doing
mm,
operational stuff? Are you complaining when you're writing an email? Are you or are you like, maybe for me, I turn on worship music and I get myself in a good space as I'm going and tackling responsibilities. Because the thing is I'm only doing the things that I absolutely love. Like maybe like a small percentage of the day am I genius, like things like this, talking, having intellectual conversations, like doing podcasts, speaking, writing, like those are like my gifts, and building into people, that's my gift. But when it comes to like doing all the other things to be able to like like coaching is my gift, but when I have to like write an email or I got to like send out a newsletter, I don't mind it. It's part of like the responsibilities of nurturing people, but would I rather have somebody else do it? Yeah, of course. I don't wanna follow up and get on sales calls and, do all that stuff, like, but I will bring, if we're talking about bringing, I will bring in worship and make it, how can I make this fun? How can I make this enjoyable? How can I get my attitude right? And I need attitude adjustments all the time. Lord is working on me, let me tell you, Paul. You know? Refinement. Refinement,
yeah,
attitude adjustments, checking my attitude, but I'm the first to tell you, I'm not perfect. I'm superhuman, but the tools work when you apply them, and it adds more quality to the day. I never
yeah,
wanna live in a day where I'm like, "Oh, I can't wait for Friday. I can't wait for Monday." Like, I'm
yeah,
just like, "What day is it? Oh, I forget. Okay."
yeah. Incredible. I'm curious, direct our listeners, where can they go to connect with you, purchase your book, and learn more about working with you?
Great question. The book is on Amazon, Building the New: A Year of Living Life on Purpose. I actually have a free 1 year assignment tracker. It's an accountability tracker. It keeps me focused. So it's also keeps me in check with my priorities. And they can get that at tanyacoliver.com/building the new. and my Instagram. I think that's even how you and I connected, is on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm at this point still receptive to my messages. I reply to all the messages, probably the same amount as my text messages. And you can find me at Tanya C. Oliver, and then YouTube. That's my next assignment. I signed up. I have a coach. I signed up. We're starting the end of June, an 8-week program. So I'll be more active on YouTube. And that's also, all my platforms are Tanya C. Oliver.
Fantastic. And I want to get you out of here on this, Tanya. If somebody listening right now is well aware of just how stuck, how short of their potential they are currently operating, and knows they need a coach, what's the nudge or the final word of encouragement that you want to share with him or her to take that courageous action and hire one?
There's a question that I even ask myself when I'm torn. Before I invested in this book, this was a very big investment, like over 40K. And when I went to invest in it, because I knew that I needed a team, I had asked myself, if it is, we'll just talk about right now, if it's June 17th, 2027, and a whole year has gone by, and I had not been obedient to this, or I hadn't taken action on this, would I be okay with myself? And the answer was a straight up no. And I said, okay, I have to do this. And the thing is I'll go on calls and I'll reach out to somebody and I'll follow up a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, and they still didn't invest because it wasn't the right time, or it wasn't convenient, or they didn't earlier. The one thing, once X happens, then I'll do Y.
Yeah.
Once I have a solid clientele business, then I'll write the book. And you know what I do? I have people do is I have them flip it. Let me write the book, and then I'll be an overflow of like clientele and opportunities and this and that. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened. And so you have to flip your X and your Ys. Once this happens, then all Y. Flip it. Watch how your life changes.
Incredibly well said. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your wisdom, Tanya.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul. It's fun.
Thank you for tuning in to another conversation here on the Unstuck High Performer podcast. I know that you found immense value in today's conversation. I have quite a few sticky notes of notes literally at my side as I was listening and flowing through my conversation with Tanya. And I hope that you pause, you take the time to further digest what it is you just listened to, and most importantly, take action upon the notes that stood out. My 2 simple asks. Number 1, share this conversation. Share this conversation with somebody in your inner circle who you know needs to hear it. And then 2, if you haven't already done so, take 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever it is you are listening to today's show. Make today great, and I'll catch you in the next episode.